I saw my wife's car in my son-in-law's driveway, and something inside me went still. Not parked on the street. Not visiting with Haley. Just, there. Quiet. Alone. And Haley's car? Nowhere in sight. That's when the cold started in my chest. I didn't slam the brakes. I didn't throw the truck into reverse. I just sat there, staring through the mist-streaked windshield, trying to explain away what couldn't be explained. My gut already knew. But I hadn't caught up to it yet. This was supposed to be just another drop-off. A spare toolbox Brandon borrowed and forgot to return. The kind of errand I'd run 100 times before. But this time, everything changed. I remember thinking, why didn't she tell me she was coming here? Darlene had said she was going to the library. Maybe the pharmacy. She hadn't mentioned Brandon. And she sure as hell hadn't mentioned going over when Haley wasn't home. The rain fell soft, a quiet curtain over a quiet street. I parked 2 houses down and killed the engine. The toolbox sat on the passenger seat, untouched. Something was wrong. And here's the part that makes my stomach turn every time I replay it. I knew. I didn't want to. I didn't believe it, not fully, not yet. But something in me, something primal and old and damn near impossible to shake, whispered, this is betrayal. But before we get to that moment, that frozen, gut-punched silence in my truck, I need to tell you what my life looked like just a few months earlier. Because you don't feel the depth of a knife until you remember what it was like to feel safe. There's a kind of quiet you only learn to appreciate after 60. Not silence, exactly, but a gentler rhythm to the world, less about chasing time, more about holding it. That's how it felt in the mornings at our place. I'd wake before sunrise, pour the same cup of black coffee into the same chipped mug, and sit by the front window as the light slowly peeled back the dark. Darlene would shuffle in a half-hour later, not a morning person by any stretch, but always muttering the same thing, you're up with the roosters again, huh? I loved that. The small things. Her grumbling, the smell of her shampoo on my flannel shirts, the way she still clicked her tongue at the crossword like it owed her money. We had 42 years under our belts, and while those years had worn some corners round, I still thought of her as mine. Not in the possessive sense. Just, mine. My person. The one I started and ended the day with. And Haley? Christ, she was everything. Our only child. The miracle baby after Darlene's 3rd miscarriage. When she came into the world, crying and red and covered in all the mess of life, I swear something opened in me. I was 34 when she was born, already rough around the edges from years in construction and union jobs, but I softened for that girl. I built her a treehouse before she could walk. Taught her to drive in my beat-up Ford. Walked her down the aisle when she married Brandon. Now, Brandon. He was always a little too smooth for my liking. All smiles and perfect teeth, the kind of man who practices his laugh in the mirror. But Haley adored him, and that was enough for me. I kept my mouth shut. Played the role of supportive dad. Even when he forgot my birthday or sidestepped helping me patch the roof last spring. Still, things were okay. Not perfect, but when are they ever? I chalked up Darlene's colder moments to age, to the grief she never really processed when her sister died. She'd gotten quieter. More private. Started spending more time at the gym, and more time on her phone than she ever had when we were younger. But hell, who wasn't glued to their screen these days? We had routines, rituals. Friday night meatloaf. Sunday calls with Haley. Even if Brandon answered more often than she did, it was enough just to hear her voice. I'd always thought of us as a team, the 3 of us. Maybe not the tightest trio, but solid. Trustworthy. I see now how much of that was hope. How much of it was a man clinging to the image of a family he thought he knew. But that moment, seeing her car where it didn't belong, was when the cracks started. Not loud. Not explosive. Just a shift. A slow, quiet splitting of the life I thought I understood. And brother, cracks don't stay small for long. I parked 2 houses down on the opposite side of the street, behind a silver minivan I didn't recognize. Killed the engine and let the rain patter against the windshield. The mist had turned to a drizzle, and the air was heavy in that way it gets before something breaks, weather or otherwise. I grabbed the toolbox anyway, needing something in my hands, something to make it look like I belonged. I stepped out of the truck, boots crunching against wet gravel. I took the long way around to the house, like I was buying myself time to come up with an excuse. Maybe Darlene stopped by to drop something off. Maybe Haley's car's in the shop. Maybe I'm just being paranoid. But that last one stuck in my throat. Because the truth was, I wasn't the paranoid type. Never have been. I built houses for a living. You don't last long in construction if you're jumpy. You learn to trust your instincts. The smell of bad wiring. The sound of a settling beam. The way a man's eyes shift when he's about to lie to your face. You learn. You survive. And right now, every part of me was telling me something was off. My jacket collar was up, not that it helped much. I crossed the road slowly, keeping my eyes on the house, on the driveway where Darlene's silver Toyota sat tucked in like it lived there. No groceries in the back seat. No fogged-up windows from waiting. Just parked like it had been there a while. Haley and Brandon's house sat quiet. Too quiet. No music. No dog barking. No TV flickering through the blinds. Just stillness. The front door was shut, blinds drawn. Porch light off. I veered to the left and slipped between the hedges. Their side gate wasn't locked, never was. I'd built the damn fence myself when Brandon said he couldn't afford a contractor. Funny thing, putting your hands into something, only to find out later it's the shell of your undoing. The backyard was still. The lawn soaked, trampoline glistening with rain, grill cover flapping faintly in the wind. But I wasn't looking at any of that. I was looking at the deck. The one I helped build with Brandon, back when I still thought he was trying to be part of this family. Cedar planks, finished with love and sweat, stained dark to match Haley's Pinterest folder. We'd worked side by side for 3 weekends, and I remember thinking maybe I'd misjudged him. Now, I crouched beside that same deck, heart pounding like a war drum. I stayed low. The bay window just above me had been my pride, I installed it myself. Triple pane. Custom trim. Perfect view of the living room. And that's where I heard it. Laughter. Not just any laughter. Darlene's. Soft. Low. Familiar in a way that made my teeth clench. A sound I hadn't heard from her in months. And then, his voice. Brandon's. Muffled, but unmistakable. Smooth. Confident. Too close. I shifted silently, just enough to get under the lip of the window, rain dripping from the back of my neck. The deck boards creaked faintly with movement above me. Then, another laugh. Her again. And then something else. A sound I can't forget, no matter how many nights I lie awake trying. Her voice. Moaning. Not just moaning. Moaning his name. I froze. Every part of me locked up. My legs. My lungs. My hands around the toolbox. I didn't move. Couldn't. The name repeated, Brandon, soft and breathy and soaked with everything she hadn't given me in years. I dropped the toolbox. Not on purpose. My hand just gave out. It hit the grass with a thud that might as well have been a gunshot in that quiet yard. But no one inside noticed. Or if they did, they didn't care. I stood up too fast. My knees buckled, and I had to grab the edge of the deck to steady myself. I thought I was going to vomit. My ears were ringing, the rain felt like needles, and the sound of them, together, was still echoing in my skull. I didn't look through the window. I didn't want to see what I already knew. Some things don't need to be witnessed to be real. I turned around and walked back the way I came. Fast. Not running, but not slow either. My boots left muddy tracks across the side yard. I ducked through the gate and didn't bother closing it behind me. Back across the road. Back into the truck. Hands shaking as I started the engine. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even curse. I just sat there in the driver's seat, staring straight ahead, watching the wipers drag the water across the windshield. Left. Right. Left. Right. Like some broken metronome marking the rhythm of a life I no longer recognized. How long had it been going on? How many Sunday dinners? How many birthdays? How many fucking times had they looked me in the eye while this was happening behind my back? I didn't go home right away. I drove. Nowhere in particular. Just drove, letting the road pull me like a tide. I passed the old mill, the church where Haley was baptized, the diner where Darlene used to order French toast and steal sips of my coffee. All of it felt like a museum now. A life on display. Preserved. But dead. Eventually I pulled over at an old rest stop off Route 9. Just sat there, engine off, rain tapping the roof like a lullaby for the betrayed. I knew I couldn't go home yet. Because if I saw her face, if I saw her pretending nothing happened, I didn't trust what I might say. Or what I might do. I didn't sleep that night. I laid there in bed beside Darlene, both of us pretending. Her pretending not to notice I hadn't said more than 10 words since I got home. Me pretending not to notice the faint trace of cologne on her skin that didn't smell like mine. She faced away from me, scrolling through her phone like usual, bathed in blue light, thumbs dancing over the screen like they were playing a song I wasn't allowed to hear. I stared at the ceiling, watching the fan spin. Not fast enough to distract me, not slow enough to calm me. Just enough to irritate. The sound of it, the way the chain clicked with every turn, that rhythm became the metronome of my fury. She laughed once. Softly. Just a puff of amusement, like a secret someone texted her. Then she caught herself and cleared her throat. I shut my eyes tight and imagined the ceiling collapsing. Just falling right down between us. Something physical and undeniable to match the thing already splitting this bed in half. In the morning, I got up before her. No coffee. No breakfast. I just grabbed my keys, left the house like a shadow, and drove. Not to work, I'd been retired 3 years. Not to the store. I wasn't even thinking in terms of destinations. I was following a pull. A question. A suspicion that had already taken root and was growing fast and wild in my gut. Was yesterday a one-time thing? That's what I told myself. Maybe it was a mistake. A moment of weakness. But deep down, I already knew the truth. Nobody laughs like that, touches like that, moans like that, without history behind it. So I needed to know. Not just guess. Not just suspect. No. I waited until late afternoon. Parked further down the block this time, around the corner where I could see their back gate if I leaned just right. Watched through a windshield smudged with fingerprints and dust. The sky was overcast, the kind of gray that looks like it's holding its breath. Time crawled. Around 4:30, Darlene's car rolled up. She parked in the same spot, Brandon's driveway, like she belonged there. Not sneaking. Not cautious. Like this had become normal. She didn't even glance around. Just stepped out in her yoga pants and long cardigan, phone in hand, purse slung casually over her shoulder. She looked like she was coming home. I watched her knock once, then walk in without waiting. That did something to me. I waited 3 minutes. Then 5. Then I got out. Toolbox again. Not because I needed it. Because it gave me purpose. A reason. A cover. I took the long way around the block, staying close to the backyards. Cut through a gap between two fences and crept up behind Brandon's deck. The one I helped build. The one I knew had a perfect crawl space beneath it, shielded from view but right next to the big bay window. It felt surreal, crouching there in the dirt, rain from yesterday still soaking the ground. My knees screamed, and my back ached from bending. But none of that mattered. Not next to what I heard. Her voice. Clear this time. Unfiltered. "Oh stop," Darlene said, playful. Flirty. The tone she used to reserve for me 30 years ago. Then his voice, "You started it." They laughed together. A kind of closeness that's not learned overnight. That's earned. Shared. Grown. Built in the quiet corners of betrayal. Then I heard the couch shift. Fabric rubbing. The creak of wood. "I can't stay long today," she said, voice lower now, more intimate. "He's been watching me closer. Asking questions." That, he was me. And Brandon? He chuckled. "Let him ask. What's he gonna do, divorce you? Please. You said he wouldn't survive alone for a week." Silence. Then her voice again, soft. "He's not. He's not like before. I think he knows. I felt it last night." Brandon said something I couldn't make out. Then more creaking. More laughter. I should have walked away right then. Should have stood up, grabbed my toolbox, and left before I heard what came next. But I didn't. Because I needed to hear it all. The full rot of it. And then, there it was. Her breath hitched. A moan. Not a question now, confirmation. The couch groaned again. Then, right there, Brandon. I don't remember standing. Don't remember walking away. Just the sound of my heartbeat, loud as a war drum, drowning everything else out. My boots scraped on gravel as I backed away, careful not to make a sound. I didn't drop the toolbox this time. I held it like a weapon. Like an anchor. Like the last piece of who I used to be. I walked back to the truck and sat inside with the windows up and the engine off. My hands were shaking. Not from rage. Not even grief. But something heavier. Like gravity had doubled. They didn't even try to hide it. That was what gutted me most. Not just the affair, but the comfort. The casualness. Like I didn't exist anymore. Like I'd already been written out of the story and didn't even know it. The worst betrayals aren't the loud ones. They're the ones whispered behind closed doors, dressed in normal clothes, spoken in voices that sound like love until you hear the meaning behind them. I started the engine. Drove home in silence. No music. No thoughts. Just a tightness in my chest that wouldn't loosen, no matter how deep I breathed. When I pulled into the driveway, her car wasn't there. Still at Brandon's, probably. Still smiling. Still lying. I sat in the dark for a long time before I went inside. Because that wasn't home anymore. Not really. I didn't confront her that night. I couldn't. I wanted to rip the truth out of her like roots from dry earth. But the part of me that had spent 42 years with this woman, that part knew better. She came home after 9. I was in my chair in the living room, TV on mute, a beer sweating on the coaster. I hadn't taken a sip. Just held it there like a prop, a placeholder for a man who still had something to believe in. She walked in casual, flipping the porch light off behind her, purse slung over her shoulder, and not a trace of guilt on her face. Not one crack. You'd think she'd been to Walgreens, not fucking our son-in-law. "Hey," she said, setting her bag down on the counter. Sorry I was gone so long. Library ran late, and I stopped at Target. I nodded. She opened the fridge and pulled out a yogurt, popped the lid with a flick of her thumb. You eat? I shook my head. Couldn't trust my voice yet. She came into the living room, plopped down on the other end of the couch like everything was normal. Like we weren't sitting inside a lie so big it should have crushed the walls around us. Her eyes flicked toward the TV screen. You're watching this again? I forced a chuckle. Just background noise. We sat in that false comfort for a few minutes. The illusion of a life. Her spoon clinking softly in the yogurt cup, me pretending to care about a muted rerun of some cooking show. I watched her out of the corner of my eye, how relaxed she was, how easy it all seemed for her. She didn't know I'd hurt her. Didn't know I'd stood 10 feet away while she moaned Brandon's name into their couch cushions. Didn't know she'd detonated a grenade in the middle of our marriage, and I'd already seen the blast pattern. That night, when she fell asleep beside me, I didn't sleep. Again. Instead, I stared at the ceiling and replayed everything. The years. The little signs. The strange silences, the inside jokes between her and Brandon I used to write off as awkward family closeness. The times I caught her smiling at her phone, typing fast and locking it the second I walked into the room. God, how many times had they laughed at me behind my back? I got out of bed around 2 a.m. and went downstairs. Sat at the kitchen table in the dark. Just me and the hum of the refrigerator and the bitter taste of betrayal in my mouth. I thought about Haley. About how she trusted both of them with her whole heart. About what this would do to her. But mostly, I thought about me. And what the hell I was supposed to do now. The man I'd been before the toolbox, before the window, before the moaning, I think he died somewhere in that crawlspace under the deck. The man who built houses and held his wife's hand during chemo. The man who thought loyalty earned loyalty. That man was gone. In his place was someone quieter. Sharper. Not angry, focused. And with that focus came a question I couldn't ignore anymore. Was it always like this? I started tracing it back. The nights she worked late when she was supposed to be volunteering at the shelter. The weekends she insisted on mother-daughter time but Haley never mentioned them. The new gym membership. The sudden interest in skincare, lingerie she hadn't worn for me in years. It was all there. Had been for a while. And I hadn't seen it. No, that's not right. I had seen it. I just didn't want to believe it. You don't get to 42 years of marriage without learning how to ignore the parts that hurt. You justify. You forgive. You give the benefit of the doubt. You keep your head down and keep going, thinking that's what love means. But love isn't a suicide pact. And this wasn't love anymore. That realization hit me like a freight train. I wasn't just heartbroken. I was humiliated. They hadn't just cheated on me. They'd erased me. Replaced me. Made me a footnote in my own damn life. And they had the audacity to keep sitting at my table, using my deck, laughing like it all belonged to them now. I sat in that darkness for hours, letting the truth settle in. This wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. Day after day. Lie after lie. And every day she came home to me, with that soft smile and casual tone, pretending like we still had something worth holding on to. She'd kissed me goodnight while still tasting him on her lips. And I'd let her. That's the part that hurt most. I let her. Because I loved her. Because I trusted her. Because I was stupid enough to think that meant something. But not anymore. By dawn, something inside me had changed. Not just the pain, but the silence that followed. The quiet that comes after the crying's done and all that's left is the cold clarity of knowing who you are to someone. I was a placeholder. A shield. A retirement plan with a pension and good health benefits. That morning, when she came down the stairs yawning, wrapped in her robe, I looked her in the eye for the first time in days. "You sleep okay?" she asked, pouring coffee. "Fine," I said. "You?" She nodded. "We need milk." I nodded too. That was it. No confrontation. No fireworks. Just silence wrapped in routine. And that silence told me everything. She thought she was still in control. She thought I hadn't figured it out. And that was going to be her mistake. Because the truth wasn't mine to carry anymore. Soon, it would be theirs. I became a ghost in my own home. No slamming doors. No screaming matches. Just a man fading out of focus, step by step, word by word. I moved through the rooms like I was haunting them, not living in them. Watching the woman I used to know pour coffee, hum at the sink, talk on the phone, all while I sat 10 feet away, more invisible than the furniture. She didn't notice. Or if she did, she didn't care. I stopped asking how her day was. Stopped kissing her goodnight. Stopped pretending. At first she filled the silence with small talk. Weather. Groceries. Some news about Haley's work. But when I gave her nothing back, not even the usual nods or yes, she just adjusted. Shifted the conversations to her phone. Found her company in Brandon's text messages and Haley's Instagram stories, wherever the hell she kept that double life going. I caught her once, smiling at her screen the way she used to smile at me. That was the day something in me truly broke. Not in a fiery, rage-filled kind of way, nothing cinematic like that. It was quieter. Like a piece of old wood snapping under pressure. A sound you'd miss if you weren't listening for it. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I withdrew. From her. From the routines. From the version of myself that had spent 4 decades trying to be good enough for people who now didn't even see me. I'd wake early, make my coffee in silence, sit on the back porch and just exist. Watch the sun rise through the trees and ask myself what the hell I was still doing here. And more than once, I thought about just leaving. Packing a bag, driving north, disappearing into the woods or some tiny nowhere town where no one knew my name. But I didn't. Not yet. Because something else had started to grow in that silence. A different kind of fire. Not grief. Resolve. One morning, I stood in the garage with the door half open, light spilling across the concrete floor like a spotlight. Dust floated in the air. Everything smelled like sawdust, old oil, and the quiet weight of years. My tools were still on the pegboard, arranged neatly. Not because I'd used them recently, I hadn't built a damn thing in months, but because I'd always kept them ready. And now, for the first time in a long time, I started to think about what came next. Not the past. Not what I'd lost. But what I could still do. There's a clarity that only comes after betrayal. After heartbreak. After you've stopped begging for answers that aren't coming. You start seeing things differently. Sharper. Cleaner. Less noise. Just truth. The truth was, I had been erased. Not just cheated on. Erased. Slowly. Subtly. Over years. The man I was, husband, father, provider, had been reduced to a background character in his own damn house. A placeholder at dinner. A warm body to keep up appearances. And I let them do it. Not all at once, but piece by piece. Every time I bit my tongue. Every time I swallowed suspicion. Every time I let respect slide because I thought love meant letting things go. But love doesn't mean disappearing. Love doesn't mean dying quietly so someone else can feel alive. I started writing things down. Not because I needed proof, I already had the proof I needed. But because I wanted to see it all on paper. Wanted to understand the full shape of the betrayal. Dates. Locations. Text messages I remembered her hiding. The week she said she was at Haley's when Haley wasn't even in town. The little inconsistencies that didn't matter at the time but made perfect sense now. It wasn't just Brandon. It was them. The both of them. Together. Coordinated. Comfortable. That's what kept eating at me. How comfortable it all seemed. And while I sat there in my quiet house, taking notes and making timelines, I started to see the real story. Not just infidelity, but disposal. They weren't just cheating. They were replacing me. Stepping over me. Building a new life on top of the foundation I'd poured for them. And I knew then, if I let this go, if I just confronted them, got mad, yelled, made a scene, they'd win. They'd paint me as the bitter old man who couldn't handle reality. The jealous father-in-law. The emotionally unstable husband. Darlene would cry on cue. Brandon would play victim. And Haley? God help me, Haley might believe them. So I went quiet. Quieter than I'd ever been. Not out of weakness. But out of strategy. Because you can't fight a war you don't understand. And I wasn't about to swing blindly at shadows. No. I was going to wait. Gather. Study. Know every inch of the battlefield before I took a single step. She noticed the silence, eventually. Late one night, she asked, "Are we okay?" I turned to her, looked her dead in the eyes, and said, "Of course." She smiled. Just a little. Like she believed me. Like she wanted to. Then she rolled over and went to sleep. And I sat there, watching her back, thinking, you won't see it coming. Because this wasn't going to be a fight. It was going to be a slow unraveling. A quiet unmaking. Not rage. Not revenge porn. Just justice, measured and precise. Every lie they told, every moment they stole, every ounce of dignity they thought they stripped from me, I was going to get it all back. Not by force. By finesse. Revenge didn't come to me in a lightning bolt. It came in the quiet. It came between the hours of 2 and 4 a.m., when the world was asleep and my mind wouldn't shut off. When I sat in the garage with the light off, listening to the tick of the water heater and the creak of the beams, staring at the workbench like it held all the answers. I didn't want to hurt them. Not physically. That would be too easy. Too loud. Too temporary. I wanted them to feel what I felt. To sit in silence and realize their entire foundation was rotten. To look at each other and wonder what was real and what was performance. To see their own reflections and feel sick. That kind of revenge takes time. It takes craftsmanship. So that's how I approached it. Not like a scorned husband, but like a carpenter. Careful. Measured. Building something piece by piece with hands that had rebuilt homes after fires, after floods, after storms. Because what they didn't know was that I had one advantage neither of them would ever suspect. I'd been invisible for years. And invisible men. We hear everything. It started with her phone. She never locked it. She thought I was too checked out to care. Too slow to catch on. She wasn't entirely wrong, until I decided I wanted to catch on. I waited until she was in the shower one morning. Towel on the rack, steam fogging up the mirror. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. I picked it up like it belonged to me. Brandon. Of course. The thread was long. Months, maybe longer. Hundreds of messages. Photos. Some I'll never unsee. Most weren't even about sex, they were worse. Jokes. Complaints about me. Long conversations about their future. About how he's a good guy but just old, tired. As if I were a couch someone needed to donate to Goodwill. I didn't screenshot anything. Too risky. Instead, I wrote it all down. In a notebook I kept in the garage, taped beneath the bottom drawer of the old tool chest. Then came the voice recorder. Just a cheap little device I ordered online. Slipped it behind a rack in the garage where she liked to take her calls, her private time, she called it. I pretended not to notice. Let her think I was half-deaf and fully uninterested. But I listened. And I recorded. 3 conversations in and I had enough filth to shake a priest. Conversations about Haley, about their plans to tell her eventually, about how Darlene wanted me to just go peacefully. Like I was some dying animal being coaxed into the woods. I didn't rage. I didn't cry. I documented. Because evidence is leverage, and leverage is power. Next, I started planting doubt, subtle things. I cancelled our shared Netflix account. Told her the bank flagged it for fraud. She barely noticed. I redirected our mail to a P.O. box I'd set up under a fake name. She complained about missing bills. I played dumb. I changed the garage door code. Waited until she asked me for it, then told her the keypad was glitching. She accepted it with a shrug. I started storing receipts. Copies of texts. I even called our bank and removed her as a secondary account holder on one of my retirement funds. She'd never notice until it was too late. All the while, I played the part. The grieving, aging husband. Distracted. Quiet. Predictable. Meanwhile, I was cataloging everything. I had photos of her car parked at Brandon's when Haley was out of town. I had logs of every date, every message, every lie she fed me. And Brandon? I sent an anonymous tip to his office. Nothing big. Just a nudge. An envelope with a printed screenshot of one of his more vulgar texts to my wife. No name. No context. Just enough to make him sweat. To make him wonder who was watching. I heard Darlene mention it the next night. Someone's trying to mess with me at work, Brandon muttered. Got some printout in an envelope. No name. No note. Just showed up on my desk. A pause. Then Darlene, you don't think he? Then laughter. And then him, please. That old man still thinks DVDs are modern tech. I smiled in the dark. Next came the calendar. Darlene kept one on the fridge. A little magnetic number with doctor appointments and birthdays. I started adding things, quietly. Like, Brandon 3 p.m., coffee. Or, remember last Tuesday, winky face, and waited for her to notice. She did. Her hand started shaking one morning when she stared at it. I watched her from the hallway. Watched her peel the note off, crumple it, shove it into the trash. She didn't say a word. But her eyes darted around the house like it was haunted. That was the beginning of the unraveling. Because she didn't know what I knew. Didn't know if I was bluffing. Didn't know what I'd seen, what I'd recorded, what I'd shared. And the beauty of it was, I didn't have to do anything else yet. Just let the paranoia do its work. Let the cracks spread. Let them start whispering instead of laughing. Let their perfect little world tilt, just slightly. Just enough to throw them off balance. It was working. I could see it in her posture. The way she checked her phone over her shoulder. The way she stopped asking me to run errands or come to dinner at Haley's. She was trying to make me smaller, quieter, less present, because she was afraid of what I might say if I showed up. That's when I knew I had her. That's when the plan started to feel less like a fantasy and more like a blueprint. I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was building something. And every nail I drove in was silent. But solid. The most dangerous kind of revenge is the kind no one sees coming. No raised voices. No fists through drywall. Just the slow turn of the screw. The kind of vengeance that slides into your life like a whisper, makes you question what's real and what's not. That's the game I was playing now. And I was playing it well. Darlene and Brandon thought they were ahead of me. Thought I was asleep at the wheel, this docile, half-senile husband they could work around until I quietly faded out of the picture. But every move I made now had purpose. Every quiet day, every nod and fake smile, camouflage. I started small. First, the thermostat. I'd set it 2 degrees warmer than usual when I left for errands, then bring it back down before she noticed. Over time, she started complaining that she was sweating at night. She blamed menopause. I nodded sympathetically. Next, I unplugged the router during one of her FaceTime calls with Brandon. When she asked, I told her the power must have flickered. She spent 2 hours on the phone with the cable company while I mowed the lawn like nothing was wrong. Then I moved on to bigger things. I redirected a delivery she was expecting, some online boutique crap she'd ordered, to Haley's house. She panicked for 2 days, accusing the company of losing the package. I shrugged, offered to call them for her. She told me not to bother. Of course she didn't. She was starting to see shadows where there were none. I watched her start double-checking her phone before setting it down. Heard her clearing her call log. She even changed her lock screen password, which was laughable. I already had a keylogger on her laptop. Old tech, sure, but effective. And Brandon? He was unraveling too. I mailed another anonymous package to his office. This time, I included a printed transcript, edited slightly, of one of their more sexually charged conversations. Highlighted certain lines. Added a note, might want to keep it in your pants during company hours. No name. No return address. Just chaos. According to Darlene, he started missing meetings. Was short with her. Paranoid. He even told her someone had been in his car, the driver's seat adjusted, glove box open. I hadn't touched his car, but that didn't matter. He believed it. That's the magic of psychological warfare, you don't have to set the fire. Just leave some smoke and let their imaginations do the rest. By week 3, she was jumpy. I came home one day and found her in the garage, looking at the shelves like they might speak to her. I asked what she was doing. She said she was looking for an old toolbox. One I knew hadn't moved in years. I knew why she was really there. She was looking for a recorder. A camera. Proof that someone was watching. And she wasn't wrong. I'd moved the recorder weeks ago, tucked it under a different workbench, inside a hollowed-out shop vac filter I'd rigged myself. Hell, I started talking out loud in the garage just to mess with her. Muttering things like, "Wonder what she's lying about today." Or, "You'd think after 40 years, I'd mean something." Then I'd come back in the house like nothing happened. Make dinner. Ask if she wanted a glass of wine. Smile. And she'd stare at me like she didn't recognize me anymore. Good. Let the doubt grow. Let her try to read my silence. One night, I suggested we go on a weekend trip. Just the 2 of us. Up to a cabin we used to rent in the hills. She looked surprised, maybe even relieved. Said yes too quickly, like she needed it. I waited until the morning of the trip, bags packed in the truck, and then I feigned a call from Haley. Emergency, I told her. She needs me. Maybe next weekend. Darlene didn't argue. Just nodded slowly and said, yeah. Sure. But I saw the flicker in her eyes. She didn't know what game I was playing. And that scared her more than anything. She started keeping her distance. Going out for errands and coming back with nothing. Avoiding phone calls around me. Leaving the room to text. I didn't follow. Didn't confront. Just let her spin. Then I made another move. I created a fake Facebook account, used an old photo from a random guy's high school yearbook, blurred slightly, added enough fake friends to look legit. Sent a friend request to Darlene. Then I messaged her, "You're not as sneaky as you think." He knows, smiley face. She blocked the account within minutes. But that wasn't the point. The point was to shake the cage. That night, she barely touched her food. Kept glancing at me like I was a ticking bomb. I asked her what was wrong. She said nothing. I told her she looked pale. She said it was just a headache. I offered her Advil. She refused. It was working. All of it. The paranoia. The confusion. The slow erosion of control. Every time I saw her flinch at a phone notification, every time Brandon's name lit up her screen and she turned the phone face down, that was mine. I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to confront. I just needed them to feel it. And they were. Every day, they looked a little more hollow. A little more frayed. The smiles they wore in front of Haley started to look forced. Darlene started jumping at the doorbell. Brandon stopped coming around as often. They weren't lovers anymore. They were co-conspirators in a crime they knew had been discovered, but they didn't know when the fallout was coming. That's what made it beautiful. They had no control over the timeline now. I did. And the clock was ticking. I chose Haley's birthday. Not because I wanted to ruin it, but because I needed her to see it all with her own eyes, on a day when everyone was looking. On a day when the masks couldn't be worn, too many people, too much light, too many eyes. And more than anything, I needed Darlene and Brandon to not be ready. They'd gotten too comfortable operating in the shadows. So I decided to drag them into the sun. The week leading up to it, I played it straight. I bought decorations. Ordered the cake from her favorite bakery. Sent out texts to her friends and coworkers. Darlene smiled at me like maybe, I was finally coming around. Maybe I'd forgiven whatever she thought I suspected. Brandon even had the balls to text me. "Appreciate you putting this together. Means a lot to Haley." I replied with a thumbs up emoji. If only he knew what I had planned. I booked a venue, nothing big, just a cozy hall at the community center with string lights and a big fireplace. Haley loved that kind of thing. Rustic. Warm. Honest. The irony wasn't lost on me. When the day came, I was calm. Unshakably calm. I shaved. Put on the charcoal blazer Darlene always said made me look distinguished. And in the inside pocket, I placed the envelope. Thick. Heavy. Full of pain. Full of truth. Inside were printed transcripts of their messages. Photos, not graphic, but intimate enough to end any denials. 3 audio recordings from the garage. A copy of the anonymous package I'd sent to Brandon's office. A short handwritten note that simply said, "I was never blind. Just patient." I placed the envelope in a gift bag. Simple, unmarked. No ribbon. No card. Just justice, gift wrapped. People started arriving around 5. Friends. Co-workers. A few cousins. Haley showed up just before 6, glowing, unaware that the world she knew was about to collapse. She hugged me first, tighter than she had in years. "Thanks, Dad. This is perfect," she whispered. I swallowed hard. I didn't want to hurt her. But I couldn't protect her with silence anymore. Darlene arrived 10 minutes later, arm in arm with Brandon. Her hair curled, dress floral and soft. She kissed Haley on the cheek and gave me a polite smile. I gave one back. Empty. Hollow. Measured. The evening went on with all the normal trimmings. Music, chatter, drinks in plastic cups. Darlene worked the room like a politician's wife. Brandon hovered near the bar, shaking hands, telling jokes. I watched them both like I was watching actors in a play, one I'd already read the ending to. Around 7:30, I clinked my glass. "Hey everyone," I said, voice steady. "Before we cut the cake, I want to say a few words." The room quieted. I saw Darlene glance over, surprised. Brandon tilted his head, curious. I turned to Haley. "I've watched you grow from a little girl who wouldn't let go of my hand to a woman with strength and grace I'm constantly amazed by," I said. "And there's nothing I wouldn't do to protect you." "Nothing." She smiled, eyes soft. I reached for the gift bag. "There's something I want you to have. It's not flashy. It's not expensive. But it's real." I handed it to her. She opened it slowly, confused. Pulled out the envelope. Looked up at me. Then she opened it. The silence in that room was immediate. Heavy. The kind that sucks all the oxygen out and replaces it with something thick and dangerous. She read the note first. Then the transcripts. Then the photos. Her hands trembled. Brandon stepped forward. "Haley." She held up a hand. Didn't look at him. Didn't look at anyone. Just turned page after page. Then the audio. She pulled out her phone, plugged in her earbuds, smart, even in shock, and listened. 3 minutes passed. 4. You could have heard a pin drop. Then she looked up. At Darlene. Her voice didn't crack. "How long?" Darlene blinked. "What? How long?" Haley repeated. Louder. Sharper. The edge of a blade behind the words. Haley, he's lying. He's twisting." I didn't say a word. Didn't need to. Haley held up the transcripts. "You called him old furniture. You said you were tired of pretending. Her voice broke for the first time. You moaned my husband's name." Brandon stepped forward. "Look, this isn't the place." "Shut up," Haley said, turning on him so fast he flinched. She turned back to her mother. "You did this to him?" she asked, pointing at me. "After everything he's done for you?" "For me." Darlene started crying. Not the kind that comes from guilt. The kind that comes from exposure. The party broke apart like wet paper. Guests whispering. A few of Haley's friends grabbed her by the shoulders, pulling her into a hug. One of the cousins muttered, "Jesus Christ," before walking out. Brandon stood there, jaw tight, arms folded like he still had some pride left to protect. He didn't. Darlene tried to reach for me. I stepped back. "Don't," I said. Calm. Firm. Final. Haley was still crying, but it wasn't sorrow in her eyes. It was rage. "I want both of you out of my life," she said. No scream. No spectacle. Just a sentence that hit harder than anything I could have said myself. She turned and walked out. Her friends followed. Darlene stood frozen, lips parted, mascara running. Brandon rubbed his eyes and muttered something I couldn't hear. I sat down, poured myself a drink, and stared at the fire. Didn't speak. Didn't gloat. Just felt the weight lift, slowly, but completely. The truth wasn't mine to carry anymore. It was theirs. You always imagine there'll be some kind of closure after the reveal. A final conversation. A last scream. A dramatic exit. But the truth is quieter than that. It doesn't scream. It settles. Like dust in a burned-out house. And then the silence moves in. The day after Haley's birthday, the phone started ringing. Darlene called first, 3 times. I didn't answer. Then she texted. "Please, can we talk?" I blocked her number. Brandon didn't reach out at all. Coward. The man couldn't even face the wreckage. Probably still believed he could talk his way out of it. Or maybe, finally, he knew he couldn't. By Tuesday, Haley had moved out of their home. I didn't hear it from her, I heard it from the neighbor who lived 2 doors down from Brandon's place. Small town. People talk. And they were talking. Apparently, she came back from the party, packed 2 suitcases, and left without a word. Brandon tried to follow her down the driveway. She slammed the car door in his face and peeled out. She's staying with a friend now. Told the neighbor, I just need to be around people who didn't lie to me. Good girl. Darlene, I found out, was staying at a motel on the edge of town. The one with the flickering neon sign and the curtains that don't quite close all the way. Fitting, in a way. She always wanted better lighting and clean lines. Now she gets beige walls and cigarette burns in the bedsheets. Serves her right. What surprised me was the way people responded. The ones who knew us, long-time neighbors, co-workers, old friends, they didn't come at me with pity. They came with respect. Mr. Donnelly from 2 houses over shook my hand and said, hell of a thing you did. Most guys would have lost their mind. Julie from the church sent me a casserole with a note. You deserved better than that. Even the guy at the gas station, the one who barely spoke in full sentences, just nodded at me and muttered, heard what happened. Good on you, man. No one mentioned Brandon or Darlene by name. They didn't have to. By the end of the week, Brandon's job had let him go. Office gossip turned to official HR scrutiny. Apparently, the Code of Conduct clause kicked in once someone brought up unprofessional relationships and inappropriate communications. I wonder who might have made that tip line call. Oh wait. I did. He's a nobody now. No job. No wife. No reputation. And Darlene? She tried to play the wounded victim card. Claimed she was manipulated. Told a few mutual friends I'd been cold for years, that she needed connection. But the problem with liars is that once they're exposed, no one listens anymore. The women in her book club stopped inviting her. The Sunday brunch group, the one she clung to like a social lifeline, ghosted her. Even her cousin, the one she barely tolerated but always tried to impress, left her on read. I wasn't cruel. I didn't spread anything extra. I didn't embellish. I just let truth do what it does best. Burn quietly. I filed for divorce 2 weeks later. Did it through a lawyer I'd known for years. Told him I wanted it clean but firm. No drawn-out battles. No negotiations over scraps. We'd already divided the life, now we just needed the paperwork to catch up. When the papers were served, I heard she cried in the hotel lobby. Again, not my problem. I kept the house. The car. The pension. Everything in my name before the betrayal stayed that way. She got a suitcase of clothes and whatever she'd stashed in that motel. Seems fair. Haley came by once, maybe a week after the reveal. She didn't say much at first. Just sat on the porch with me. 2 cups of coffee. Autumn breeze cutting through the silence. Then she said, I never saw it coming. Neither did I told her. She looked tired. Not broken, not like her mother, but worn down by the weight of it all. I thought Brandon loved me, she said. I nodded. I thought your mother loved me, too. And we just sat with that. Not bitter. Not angry. Just aware. It's strange how fast people can vanish from your life when the illusion breaks. Darlene and Brandon used to be constants, fixtures in every room, every memory. And now? They're just shadows at the edge of my story. I started changing things around the house. Ripped out the old deck boards Brandon helped me install, couldn't look at them anymore. Repainted the bedroom. Took down every picture that had Darlene's smile in it. Bought a new mattress. One that didn't remember her weight. Even the house seemed to breathe easier. I started eating again. Sleeping. Walking in the mornings with a thermos of black coffee and a playlist of old rock songs. People waved more now. I think some of them felt sorry for me, but most. They respected the way I handled it. Hell, a few of the women at the grocery store started lingering a little longer in the produce aisle when I passed by. I'm not rushing into anything. I've earned my peace. Let Darlene rot in motel silence. Let Brandon sit in his empty condo, wondering how the hell it all fell apart. And let Haley heal in her own time, because she's stronger than she knows. This wasn't just about infidelity. It was about erasure. About two people trying to remove me from my own family without even the decency to lie well. But I didn't rage. I didn't scream. I just watched. And when the time was right, I let the truth walk through the front door and do what I couldn't. End them. The silence feels different now. Not hollow. Not lonely. Just mine. There's a kind of quiet that follows war. Not peace, not exactly, but a calm forged in the fire. That's where I live now. In a house that no longer whispers lies. In rooms where I no longer share the air with ghosts. And for the first time in years, I can breathe all the way in. Was it worth it? Yes. Not because it made them suffer, though they did. Not because it tore down their lies, though it did that too. It was worth it because I got to reclaim something that had been slowly stolen from me, my self-respect. People think revenge is about getting even. It's not. It's about reminding yourself that you matter. That you're not some disposable fixture in someone else's life. That your pain is real. That your silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. That your love, your loyalty, your presence isn't a given. Darlene never understood that. She thought I'd roll over. She mistook kindness for submission. Routine for ignorance. Age for impotence. Brandon? He never saw me as anything but an obstacle. Something to tolerate until I was out of the way. He had all the charm of a man used to getting what he wanted without consequences. And he thought he could outsmart a man who'd spent 4 decades solving real problems, with his hands, his sweat, and his patience. He was wrong. They both were. You don't survive 40+ years of marriage, bills, kids, funerals, layoffs, injuries, and heartbreak by being soft. You survive it by being steady. And sometimes, that steadiness gets mistaken for simplicity. But I was never simple. I was just focused. And when betrayal came knocking, I didn't answer with a shotgun or a suitcase. I answered with evidence, with precision, with timing. I didn't shout. I moved the pieces. Let them talk themselves into the grave while I built the coffin. And when the time came, I handed them the shovel. Now, I sit on my porch most mornings with a mug of coffee and a worn-out paperback. The sun rises a little slower these days, or maybe I just take longer to notice it. Either way, I'm not in a hurry. The world is smaller, but cleaner. No more pretending. No more playing house in a home built on lies. Haley visits once a week. We don't talk about her mother or Brandon unless she brings it up, and when she does, there's no more rage in her. Just that dull ache of recognition. That realization that people aren't always who you need them to be. But she's healing. Working. Laughing again. She'll be okay. And me? I'm learning how to live again. I started going to the library. Signed up for a woodworking class just to be around the tools again. Not to build anything for anyone else, just for me. I'm making a coffee table. Solid oak. No screws, just joinery. The way I was taught. Something about it feels honest. There's a widow I met at the class. Name's Ellen. Sharp as hell. Wears denim and flannel better than I ever did. We haven't done anything but share lunch and a few dirty jokes, but she sees me. Really sees me. Not as a husband. Not as a father. Just as a man. That's enough for now. I don't miss Darlene. I miss the version of her that existed before all this. The woman who danced barefoot in the kitchen to Motown on Sunday mornings. The one who laughed until she cried at my terrible impressions. That woman died long before the affair started. And Brandon? He was never real to begin with. Just a polished mask with nothing underneath. What I regret isn't the revenge. It's the time I spent convincing myself I didn't need it. But I've let that go now. There's power in the letting go. Power in silence. Power in truth. I don't know what happens next. Maybe I'll rebuild the deck. Maybe I'll take a road trip. Maybe I'll call Ellen and see if she wants to grab dinner. All I know is, I'm no longer waiting for anyone's permission to live my life. They took their shot. They missed. I'm still standing.